putting you in here so that we can play, we can hang out, we can spend time together. Kids, we do have some coloring books here at the front. We printed off some new pages. They're a little bit more challenging pages. There's like a deer here. There's another deer there. If you guys want to come up and collect, Amelia, did she run out? Just as I was thinking. Anyway, I was going to ask her. Oh, she's there. Amelia, can you help give out crayons and booklets to everybody? You can give them the new pages, make sure they got crayons. Amelia will take care of that for me. Thank you. Okay, otherwise announcements. So, very importantly, next week is the Kite Flying Festival, okay? Which means don't be here. Our doors will be closed here, okay? We are going out in service, so service will be to the community, okay? So we will be meeting at Civic Park. I'll be there at around probably 9. If I can see you guys there at 10, that would be fantastic. We'll be setting up some tables. We're setting up a barbecue. On that note, I need a barbecue. If anyone has a propane barbecue they'd like to loan me for a little while so we can cook some food. I know Mark's one of my barbecue masters. I'm looking for another one just to help him out so that he's not tied there the entire time. But I'm picturing like 10 tables and chairs and all the supplies you need to make a kite. And so it's the Kite Flying Festival. We're inviting the community to come out, build a kite on the spot, try and fly it, and give away prizes. And I'm super excited for it. And so you guys, I'm hoping will all be there in whatever capacity you can, whether you're helping at a table, helping children to build kites, or whether you're just hanging out with the people. That's the whole point of outreach. If you can do nothing else, encourage someone, love on someone, talk to someone, see how they're doing, show an interest in their lives, right? And just build relationship with the community around you, okay? So 10 o'clock, I'm hoping to see you guys there. I'll be doing a bit of training on how to make kites there. There'll be papers printed out, but I'll also be teaching you guys how to do it so that you can teach other people as they come out. Leo will be there. There'll be balloons. We got like a whole bunch of stuff planned, but I need you guys there. So service is still happening, just not here at Civic Park, and we'll be serving the community around us, okay? So I hope to see you guys there. I'm excited to see you guys there. I don't care how old you are. Okay? Awesome. Okay, after that, so the week following, this would be August 21st, Kathy Meisen, she is our missionary to Honduras. She'll be coming and guest speaking. So on that note, at the end of that service, we'll be taking up a love offering for her. And you can also do like e-transfers if that's the way you're comfortable doing. Just write down in the message portion that it's for Kathy. But we'll be taking up a love offering for her, and we get to hear how she's been doing for the last couple of years in Honduras, which is super exciting. And then finally, September 21st, it'll be an evening, but we'll be running Class 1. That gives you an introduction to who we are, why we do all the things that we do, a little bit about everything, how we do communion, when we do communion, why we do some of the events that we do, who we are as a church, what does it mean to build up, build in, build out, and just everything about us, right? And at the end, you'll be given a chance to become a member if you're new. Now, I encourage, or if you're already a member, I still encourage you to show up just because you get to know and hang out. Dinner will be provided, free food, come on, right? So, but it'll be good for everyone to brush up and just know, who we are and why we do what we do. I think that's it for announcements. Did I cover everything? We're good? We're good? Okay. Can I get PowerPoint up on the screen? Okay, so I had a series planned in my head, and it was loving God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, all your strength. And I guess that would take 4 weeks because I'm going to focus on each and every single one. But since we're taking like a 2-week different way of doing service, this is going to be a standoff or introduction into that, if you will. Okay? But that's where eventually I'm going. So in September, once we get there, we'll be doing 4 weeks of loving God, which I'm excited for. Okay? So I was looking through the Bible and having an incredible, live in a world of computers, so it's really cool. I have this Bible program that I can hover my mouse over a word in the Bible, and it tells me everything about it. And then I could like double click on it, and then it tells me how often it shows up in the Bible, where it shows up in the Bible, what it means in different parts of the Bible. And so it's always intriguing to see what pops up, to say, hey, how often does the word love show up in the Bible? How often does the word fear show up in the Bible? How often do, right, like different words, and just learning and experiencing and having fun and just being like, oh, I wonder, you know. And so I was looking up the word service and how often that shows up in the Bible. So, of course, depending on translation, it shows up anywhere between 980 times and 1,060 times to serve. Guys, that's a lot of times to be showing up in the Bible. I know you think the Bible is really big. As a pastor, I feel like it's really small. Okay, but over 1,000 times the word service is mentioned in there. Okay, now there's 3 different words used for service with different definitions, but the one that shows up 980 to 1,060 times means bondservant, and I'll tell you in a moment what that means. But the 3 definitions that shows up in the Bible is 1, general service, to service someone, to help them with something, you know, general service. Then there's to be a servant of someone. And then the final one is the one that just completely blew me away when I looked at the definition, and I was like, what? And it means like bond servant. And the way it works is it's like voluntary service. And I was like, whoa, okay, that right away is something all in and of itself to look at, to be like, hold on, voluntarily taking care of someone, voluntarily doing something for someone, and that's awesome. But then it used the words for life. That means you're giving up your entire life, the time that you have here on earth, to serve someone else. And that's what it means to be a bondservant. And that shows up over 1,000 times in the Bible. Like, that's absolutely crazy, to voluntarily serve for life. Wow, that's pretty intense. All right, so I'm jumping all over the Bible as I usually do. But Deuteronomy chapter 15, I'm starting in verse 13. I thought this was really cool. And it says this: when you release a male servant, don't send him away empty-handed. Give him a generous farewell gift from your flock, your threshing floor, your winepress. Share with him some of the bounty with which the Lord your God has blessed you. Remember that you were once slaves in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God redeemed you. That is why I'm giving you this command. But suppose your servant says, well, I'm not leaving you, because he loves you and your family, and he has done well with you. In that case, take an awl and push it through his earlobe into the door. After that, he will be your servant for life. Megan's giving me the, ew, that's an awl, everybody. That's a metal one. They also had bone ones. The bone ones look a heck of a lot scarier because they're very pointy, and then they're not always very straight, so they kind of look jagged, and you're just like, oh my goodness, you're putting that through my ear. And then it's like, well, hold on, why? What exactly is going on here? And so, being Israel and going from place to place and moving around, you may not have always come with something. You know, if you lost everything, or if you came from being a slave to another nation, then finally set free, you're kind of like, I got nothing. It's not like I'm going home to a home. I've got nothing. And so if you were in a very bad situation, you can offer service to someone who would take care of you. And the deal would be that they would have you for 7 years, except you would work for 6, and the 7th was considered, don't worry, like the beginning of that 7th is like, you've done your time, you're good to go, okay? And so it was an opportunity to help someone out. And that's why God's saying, listen, when someone does that, when they've worked for you for that 6 years, the beginning of the 7th there, that's it. You can let them go. But when you let them go, don't let them go with nothing. You got to give them something, so give them a little bit. And then if you continued reading in there, it talks about how, well, 2 things that really strike me is, 1, God says, hey, when you were in Egypt, you were all slaves. But when you left Egypt, you didn't leave empty-handed. A lot of the Egyptians gave a lot of gold and a lot of stuff to say, we're not leaving you out in the wilderness with nothing. We're going to give you something so that you can survive a little bit out there. So when they left, they actually left with riches. Okay? Which is interesting because then they wanted to come and kill them, or at least capture them, bring them back. But they left with riches. And so God's even like, well, hold on. If I, as God, allowed you to leave with riches, tell me why someone who serves you for a period of 6 years, that you can't give him something to begin his journey where he's going to next. So you should help them out. Okay? So that's one. Now I forgot what the other one was. That's okay. Oh, yeah. No, I wrote it down. Woo! A servant was worth twice as much as a hired hand. A hired hand you had to pay. You physically had to pay them, right? They came, they did their time, you pay them for that. Whereas a servant, they're working for free. They're working for whatever happens at the, like the room and board, and you're taking care of them, right? And so they're just there to help you out, to help the family out. And so it was considered that their value is like twice as much. And so God's reminding and saying, as opposed to a hired hand, you've had a servant for 6 years. You got to give him something when he goes. You got to take care of him. It's very important that you do. And then, of course, we read and it says, but what if they say, I don't want to go? Right? And you're like, well, wait a second. Why would you want to be a servant? Well, just picture it. If you're working for someone who is then taking care of you, and you're doing it voluntarily, you've put yourself in this position where it's like, hey, I need help. I need to get back up on my feet. Can you give me a place to stay a little while? I'll work for you. I'll help you out. And then you fall in love with the family. You've been serving, but you've fallen in love with them, and they treat you well. This isn't like a slave. This is like a servant, right? Someone who comes and takes care of things. And so they become part of the family, and they share the family burden, and they want to see the family succeed. So all of a sudden they're like, no, but I love it here. I don't actually want to go. I kind of just want to join your family, if you will. Okay? So then comes the whole doing the all thing. So this was very symbolic because you would put your earlobe on the door frame, presumably, at least all research says, of your master, of their home. So you would actually be shedding blood on their doorframe, okay? To sit and say, my blood, who I am, is now tied with you. And I voluntarily give who I am to be with you. And I'm okay with that, okay? Because again, they've fallen in love with the family. And so they become a voluntary bond servant, right? Giving up their life in service to the family. And it's an incredible, beautiful thing. And then when I think of that, and I'll get more into this in a month-ish from now when I talk about loving God, but I think of us who serve God, who God loves us so much, who God has blessed us, and for us sitting there saying, but God, I don't want to leave. You're like my dad. You've been taking care of me, and giving God your all. You see the AWL there? Giving God your all. As in, God, you can pierce my ear. I belong to you. I want to stay with you for life. Now, we'll get more into that in a little bit. It was just a little preview, if you will, with my punny jokes. Okay. Now, I asked the question, and I'm still kind of confused, and I still struggle with the idea that it's just like, well, hold on. Why would anyone want to be a bondservant for life? 2 years, 6 years, grab a little bit of stuff and go out and start on your own. Like, what? Like, I think of life, of what we do, and it's like when you work somewhere, generally speaking, most people want to climb up the ladder, right? They don't want to do the grunt work all the time. They'd love to be a foreman, a manager. A person, instead of having a truck drive for many, many, many hours, will be like, oh, wouldn't it be much easier to just work dispatch and send people to go instead of me having to go all the time? Right? You want to move up because the idea of moving up is that you get paid more and you get to do less. Right? That's the idea that's tied up with it. Hold on, I get to do less. Maybe more responsibility, but less actual like work. And then I get paid more. And that's kind of the way society works is we want more, but we want to do a heck of a lot less. Right? That when people think of like their dream jobs, it's usually got an immense high pay for very little work involved. And then when you think of people like first class, you know, when you think of a plane, you think of like first class, people who are up at the front, they have more leg room, more their chairs actually bend a little bit further back than this much. I'm not even sure why they bother when it's only like this much. But your seats go back. They give you blankets, wet towels, you know, little thing to cover your eyes so you can take a nap when you want. You get movies. You get completely taken care of. They serve you completely. And so when I think of like high class, first class, I'm just like, you know, they probably have a cook, so they don't have to worry about what's for dinner. Someone's cooking dinner for them. They have someone to watch their kids so that they can go out whenever they want. They go to spas and they get their manicures and pedicures. Heck, even if you don't feel like taking your dog out for a walk, they can have dog walkers do it for them, right? And I'm just like, my goodness, at what point do you do nothing at all? You know, I got someone cooking, someone cleaning, someone taking care of the kids, someone watching my dog. What's left to do? What do you do with your life at that point? It seems like society wants to get to a point where it's like they do nothing at all. They're just served in all capacity. And it's like, I don't know. What would you do with that? Right? So that's the way this, like, our world around us sees it. And yet, the Bible is talking about the complete opposite. not about being served, but about serving other people voluntarily. You may not even get anything back from it, okay? But giving up who you are for other people. And it talks about it more than 1,000 times in the Bible. Now, I'm not the only one that struggles with the idea. People in the Bible struggled with the idea as well. They wanted power. They wanted influence. They wanted, I want to be the greatest. I want to be, God's right-hand man. If Jesus becomes king, I want to be like right up there, with them. And they fight over it all the time. So at least we can see that, the world's not alone. The disciples struggled with this one too. Luke chapter 9, verse starting in 46. The greatest in the kingdom, it's entitled, depending on translation. Then his disciples began arguing about which of them was the greatest. But Jesus knew their thoughts. So he brought a little child to his side. And he said to them, anyone who welcomes a little child like this on my behalf welcomes me. And anyone who welcomes me also welcomes my Father who sent me. Whoever is the least among you is the greatest. So they're sitting there arguing, fighting. To them, when they expected God to return, they expected him to come back as a conqueror, as a king whose kingdom would overthrow. They didn't like being under the Romans, right? So a lot of the disciples were just like, at some point, Jesus, who's performing all these miracles, he's going to take the throne. They were thinking a little bit more earthly, like in that time, right? So they're like, I can sacrifice a little bit, and then maybe I get to be Jesus' right-hand man, right? And this is what they were arguing about. Like, I want to be the greatest. I want to be the person who serves Jesus the most so that I've done my time. So that way, afterwards, I can do what I want to do. And it's interesting because James and John and we'll read that in a bit, come and ask Jesus of a favor, and it's just after Jesus talks about thrones in heaven and, what that's going to look like in kingdom. And so they're getting excited, not heavenly excited, very earthly excited. Okay? I asked the question, why did God pick a child? Whoever welcomes a child like this, and welcomes me, right? And I think about a kid, and what does a kid have? And I'm just like, well, really, they're a burden. No, I love my kids. They're not a burden. It's a burden as in it's a time burden. It's a financial strain. It's an energy thing. Those things are part of, a kid doesn't just come and starts working the family business. They have to grow to that position, right? For the first months of having a child, you're constantly feeding them and being awake. You're much like a zombie most of the night because they're waking you up every 3 hours, and then they get sick and it's even worse. And it's just like, oh my goodness, they take your time, your energy, they exhaust you, and you're just like, my goodness. And then they get a little bit older and they eat like horses, but they don't do any work. It'd be better to have the horse. At least the horse works afterwards, right? But kids completely depend on you for many, many, many years. And it's like, what is Jesus trying to say here? Why a child, right? Well, a child completely depends on their parents. You are my everything. You give to your children sacrificially without asking for anything in return. In fact, when they finally tell you they love you for the first time, you're there in tears. You're just like, oh. I was talking this morning just about, I remember when Micah was first born, trying to tickle his toes, and he wasn't ticklish. And I'm like, oh man, this is bummed. I just want to get him to laugh. And the best I ever got was he squished out a fart, and he did this funny face. And I'm like, I think he's laughing! How true that is as he gets older. But anyways, it took 3 months before I got the first smirk, and I was overjoyed. Right? And this is like I said, every 3 hours, I'm waking up through the night, oh, he's hungry again, oh, he needs to be clean, oh, this, and it's just constant. They completely depend on you. And Jesus is like, those of you who come to me like this, my son put his hand up. It's not question and answer. I love you. We'll talk later. Okay. So, completely depends on God, right? We need to do the exact same thing. We need to be completely dependent on God. He's going to fulfill our every need, right? But as a parent who's looking at a kid, we serve. We completely serve, asking for nothing in return. We give of our lives sacrificially. And I think that's what he's talking about, is that us and our lives, in order to be the greatest, you need to be the least, serving everyone else. You need to change your mind frame. You need to change the way you look at things. And instead of wanting to be served, wanting to be taken care of, wanting to do absolutely nothing for all the highest pay, it's looking at the complete opposite. serving the people around you, loving the people around you. And Jesus teaches about it. Mark chapter 10, 35, verse 35. James and John, the sons of Zebedee, they come over and spoke to him. Teacher, they said, we want you to do us a favor. I love this. You ever get a kid come up to you and be like, can you do me a favor? Can you make me a promise? It's like, well, tell me what the promise is first before I make any promises here. Like, right? It feels like they're trying to swindle you, right? Tell me you're going to do me the favor first, and then I could ask anything I want. You got to do it because you said you would do it, right? This is the way I picture them coming before Jesus, right? Hey, would you do us a favor? Well, what's your request? He asked. And they replied, when you sit on your glorious throne, we want to sit in places of honor next to you, one on your right and the other on your left. And Jesus said to them, you don't know what you're asking. Are you able to drink from the bitter cup of suffering I am about to drink? Are you able to be baptized with the baptism of suffering that I must be baptized with? Oh, yes, they replied, we are able. Again, they're thinking very earthly minded, right? If I pay a little bit now, right, I'll be able to have all the riches afterwards, right? And Jesus, he's talking spiritually about what he has to endure spiritually, right? They're having two completely different conversations. Jesus told them, you will indeed drink from my bitter cup and be baptized with my baptism of suffering. Jesus can see the future. He knows what they would experience after Jesus died, the persecution that they would receive. But I have no right to say who will sit on my right or on my left. God has prepared those places for the ones he has chosen. When the other 10 disciples heard what James and John had asked, they were indignant. So Jesus called them together and he said, you know that the rulers of this world, they'll lord it over you. They lord it over their people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you, it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone else. For even the Son of Man came, not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many. So James and John were spurred on by mom, because this was like mom's plan, been like, listen, if Jesus ends up being the king, you guys want like some glory. You want some honor in this. You want to take your share. And so they approach and they're just like, Jesus, can you do us a favor? We want places of honor, right? And when he talks about the suffering, like I said, they're just looking at suffering like, oh, this is what we're going to receive here on earth, and then we'll get all kinds of glorious stuff here on earth, right? And Jesus is like, you will receive suffering, but not in that way, right? And again, this is just after Jesus talks about thrones and judges and everything else, right? They were looking to have power. They were looking to have wealth, right? And we're willing to suffer a little bit so long as they received awesomeness afterwards. Again, they're looking for prominence, riches, power, influence. And Jesus responds, it's just like, you guys don't even understand what you're asking for, right? Because he's talking about a spiritual, like what's going on spiritually afterwards. Like Jesus was going to give up his life as a ransom for many. And he tells them as much, right? He's like, I didn't come to be served. I came to serve, right? And I love that our God is a God of example. He doesn't just say it, came and does it and shows it and examples it. And it's like, hold on, our God came to die a death he didn't deserve. Came to suffer when he didn't deserve that. Came with all power and all authority of being God and could have smoten anyone at any given time, right? They're putting crown of thorns on his head and he could have just like one word, poof, but took it all in service and love. And that's what he was talking about. The suffering that he was talking about was a self-sacrifice. That no matter what's going on like with you, to you, whatever is being done to you, it's not about being entitled. It's not about you getting what you deserve, what you want, what you need, it's instead letting go of everything. Letting everything go and serving all the people around you, and how important that is. When Jesus talks about the cup of suffering, I did a little research on that, and so I found it really cool. It's banquet talk, if you will, like when someone threw some kind of a banquet. The cup that they had was the designated portion that everyone was allowed to drink, right? So they would dictate when people come to eat, to come to drink, this is what they are allowed to have. Right? So it was just very interesting that it's like this cup is what, is designating the amount of suffering that each person will go through. As in it exists. It's there. And it was just like, whoa. we will go through things, right? And of course, hey, James, John, you think you can suffer? You think you can endure it, right? And here's the thing. It comes at a cost, right? They wanted places of honor. They wanted places of greatness. And it is attainable at a cost. And it's self-sacrifice. It's amazing. I've said it before. It's amazing how when you want love and you want to hold it, that it like disappears. But when you give love away freely, it grows, it expands, it goes, right? In the same way, when you try to accumulate wealth and hold on to it, it seems to just disappear. But it says when you give it away, you're storing up treasures in heaven. The whole concept of why is it always that I got to lose everything in order to gain everything? But it seems to come up again and again and again because there's a spiritual side to it all. There's something going on in your heart when you do that brings you closer to God. When instead of looking to be like, oh, I want to be served, I want to be taken care of, instead saying, no, I want to bring joy to other people. I want to serve other people. I want to honor other people. I want to love on other people. It really goes against all of who we are to be thinking like that. Right? Instead of to be thinking, I want, I need, to be like, no, wouldn't it be great if this person had this? Oh, think of the enjoyment that they would have out of that. To change your thinking and not look to be served, but to continue to serve other people. Have you ever been in a place where you've given money away and you're like, and they never give it back? Right? And then you have those awkward conversations, or you have no conversation because they'll never talk to you again because you gave them money and they feel so guilty now for not giving it to you. They'd rather just never talk to you again. And you're like, oh, but come on. I was nice enough to give it to you and I've been waiting like 3 years. Give it to me in installments, $10 a month. Like, come on, give me something. Right? And in your heart, you're like, no, but I deserve that. I helped you out. Have you ever worked for someone who promised you a certain pay and then you got totally underpaid? And it's like, well, what happened to the other 50 hours I worked? Am I not getting paid for that? Like, have you ever been taken advantage of? And in your heart, you're just like, but this isn't fair. I deserve. I did my time. I did this, and I should be getting this. This is exactly the heart that Jesus is referring to. This is exactly where he's like, no, guys, that's not the way it's going to work with you. You want to be the greatest? You must serve everyone else. Okay? Ever been stolen from? Think about it. How does it feel inside, right? It's just like, oh my goodness, I was taken advantage of. I was hurt. Luke 6, starting in verse 27. But to you who are willing to listen, I say, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Not do good to those who do good for you. It's like, hey, we're doing good for each other. We're awesome. No. Do good for those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Someone swears at you. Isn't your every instinct to just swear back? I'm going to dish it out right back to you. And it's like, no. Bless them. It's not even stay neutral. It's not even like, okay, well, whatever. They're having a bad day. No. Bless them. That's hard. Whew. They're taking it out on you. And everything inside of you is like, this isn't fair. And Jesus is like, yeah, no, bless them. Pray for them. Love on them. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who hurt you. If someone slaps you in one cheek, offer the other cheek also. If someone demands your coat, offer your shirt also. Give to anyone who asks. Come on, some people have a reputation that they ask for things and they never give it back. And you're just like, I already loaned it out to someone else. It's broken. You look for a reason not to give it to them because you know you're never getting it back. But what's it say? Give to anyone who asks. And when things are taken away from you, don't try to get it back. Let it go. Again, the complete opposite of everything that goes on in our hearts. The opposite of what we hunger for, of what we crave for, of what, but that's the attitude that God is looking for. Serving all the people around you, expecting nothing in return. And in the end, didn't Jesus do exactly that? To the one who, like, all honor, all glory, who everything belongs. This entire creation is all his. And yet, he laid everything down. And he could have stopped it at any point in time. Instead, he gave. Did he deserve death? Did he deserve to be whipped? Well, still can't get over the idea of Jesus standing with Pontius Pilate before the crowd. And Jesus is like, I know every one of your names. I know everything about every single one of you out there in the crowd. How much I love you. I made you, and I made you with purpose. And I love you. And they scream out, I wish you were dead. Crucify him! It's like, that's their dad sitting there before his children, and they're saying, I wish you were dead. And still, Jesus is like, I don't ask for anything in return. And I will repay this with the greatest act of love. It's a complete change of the heart. Bondservant, serving voluntarily for life. Even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many. I love how everyone else heard what was going on with James and John. They grumble. They get upset. Oh, man, they tried to get the left and the right. What's left? We wanted places of honor. And they fight with each other. And he knows what they're thinking about. And he's trying to teach them to have a change of heart, to stop fighting for those things and instead serve each other. So Jesus called them together and he said, you know that the rulers of this world lord it over their people. Look what I got. Look what I've achieved. Look at, I've made it. They lord it over people, right? Oh, I'll never forget when I was working for this gentleman and I had to install pot lights. And so all the holes were done already to fit the pot lights perfectly. And I'd done this numerous times before. But it was actually the boss's son. And he came and he's like, I want you to daisy chain them on the floor. As in connect all the lights on the floor. And then you can just pot them all up and put them down. And I'm like, oh, no, but it doesn't work like that. If you wire them here, you can't fit it through that little hole. They clip on at the bottom. You have to do the wiring from the top. You have to fish the wires first. He's like, listen, this isn't my first rodeo. I was like, yes, boss. I'm sorry. So I did everything on the floor like he asked. And when I got to the point, I was like, so can you explain to me now that I've done what you've asked? How do I get that up there? And then he realized his mistake. He didn't want to listen to me, and I couldn't say anything about it at that point. But my goodness, like I said, he was lording over it. Like over me, he was just like, this is my first rodeo. I know what I'm doing. And I was just like, oh, okay. He had to go to the store, get a whole bunch of new wire for me, and I had to do the job a second time. But you know the world, rulers of this world, they will hold their authority, their status, who they are, what they've achieved over you. Sucks, doesn't it? But among you, it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone else. Wow. Have you guys heard of a show called Cribs? It was like maybe 2000s, somewhere in there. They did the show on television back when cable was a thing. And they would just show you these like multi-million-dollar homes and yachts and, indoor swimming pool and sauna and hot tub and bowling alley and theater. And, this is their sound system. There's actually like 8,000 speakers pin dropped all over the room that you're in. And they would just show you these absolutely crazy homes. And it's just like, well, why did people like watching that show? Well, it's like, that's what I want to have one day. Oh, wouldn't it be cool if I achieved that one day? Right? And that's like why people watch the show. It would let them dream, right? It would let them be like, oh, if I could achieve that would be status, that would be influence, that would be power. That would mean I made it in life. And again, Jesus is just like, no, you need to change your heart. You need to change your perspective. You need to change the way you look at it. You need to love the people around you. You need to serve them. You want to be a great leader? Then learn what it means to serve everyone else around you first. Luke 14. Then he turned to his host. When you put on a luncheon or a banquet, he said, don't invite your friends, brothers, relatives, rich neighbors. They're just going to invite you back, and that will be your only reward. Instead, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind. Then at the resurrection of the righteous, God will reward you for inviting those who could not repay you. Do you see, again, that transition of the heart? It's like, don't invite your friends and people that are just going to give you back what you've given to them and feel like you've done a great job. Give to people who will never pay you back. Take care of, feed the crippled, the blind. Take care of them. They can't pay you back. You'll never get... This is the whole innocence of a child who looks up to you and depends on you for everything, and it's self-sacrifice. It's the entire point of love. Love without expecting anything in return. Not loving someone because they love you back. Jeepers, anyone can do that. Loving people who will take advantage of you, who may steal from you, who are a drain to you. And that's okay. Serve and love them. Then at the resurrection of the righteous, God will reward you for inviting those who could not repay you. Life is short. You only have a short period of time in which to serve. It's great because I was built for service. I expect this to be my entire eternity, but I find great joy in it. I find a beauty in it. I want to serve. There's nothing like doing something for someone and seeing them smile, maybe seeing them cry, and just because they've been blessed. There's just so much more beauty in that than me ever having anything that I want. It's amazing that in order to gain, you need to lose absolutely everything. But in the end, again, life is short. In the end, what are you holding on to anyways? Luke 17:30-33. Yeah, it'll be business as usual, right up to the day when the Son of Man is revealed. On that day, a person out on the deck of the roof must not go down into the house to pack. A person out in the field must not return home. Remember what happened to Lot's wife. If you cling to your life, you will lose it. But if you let it go, you will save it. Such a complete change of the heart. Instead of wanting, instead of craving, instead of it's volunteering your life in service for life. A bond servant. Voluntary service for life. And now I hope that you begin to see that in a completely new light. That it's not like, oh my goodness, why would anyone want to serve all their life someone else? Like, why would you want to? That's not the place I want to be. But instead, that is the perfect place to be. Honoring, loving for, and blessing other people. Instead of craving for, to share an abundance of love sacrificially. That means it costs you something. It means it may hurt. It means people will take advantage of you, and it's okay. But to continue to love them anyways. What a beauty it is to serve each other. So, next week, Kite Festival. We'll be serving our community. You better all be there. Okay? Because what an opportunity there will be to serve the community around us. To love, to listen to people, to help children build a kite, to talk to parents, talk to aunts, talk to workers, talk to, you don't know who you're going to meet. But I'm praying that God will give you the right person at the right time, the right words to say to encourage them, to bring life into them, to bring hope into their lives. You never know where people are at. I actually just lost a friend this week, someone I kind of grew up with, and he took his own life. And it's heartbreaking. It's heart-wrenching that he got to a place that there was no hope. There was just an emptiness, a nothing. And I'm just like, we had the opportunity to serve someone else, to show them that love, that it is real, that it is incredible, that it is life-changing, that it gives hope, that life is a beautiful gift given by God. So I hope to see you next week. Will you guys bow down your heads and close your eyes and just pray with me? Lord, help us to let go of this life, of this world, of the things that we think that are dear, Lord, but instead hold on to the things that are dear to you, which is other people. May we be constantly an encouraging voice to the people around us, uplifting, loving, that when we hear the call to service, when we hear that someone needs help, that we drop everything and go, never expecting anything in return. God, when we are asked to give, may we give in abundance, Lord. May we hold on to nothing. We're all stewards of everything you've given to us anyways. We're responsible for what you've given to us and how we can use it to further your kingdom, further what you need done, Lord. God, may we learn what it means to serve the people around us. May we not look at it through at least the beginning of James and John's life there as they looked and just said, oh, but we want presence, we want influence, we want glory, we want honor, but instead give all of that up in service to other people. May we sacrificially love without expecting anything in return, giving up of who we are in the same way that Christ did. The same way that you sent your Son, who had all power and authority, and gave it all up to die a criminal's death. God, you led by example. Will you do a work inside of our hearts? Will you begin to change our perspective, God, to stop wanting and begin to just give? May we give generously. Lord, I just pray blessing over everything that we do. As our week unfolds, that you give us opportunity to reach the world around us, Lord, but that you bless, you protect, you talk to us, you help us to grow, you comfort those who need that comfort. But God, help us to grow in maturity. Help us to see the need around us and in our community, Lord, and meet that need. Bless, watch over, protect us, God, and give us every opportunity to further your kingdom. In Jesus' mighty name I pray. Everyone said? Amen. Amen. Jack, you can turn off the camera. Thank you. So, I hope that gives you something to chew on for the week to come, what it means to give up completely sacrificially without asking for